Today, I'm breaking down the ultimate DST, defense and special team strategy in fantasy football land ahead of 2026 drafts. Hopefully, we'll be done in a crisp 10 minutes going through the top 5 big units that pretty much everyone agrees on. But if you're too cool to be using an earlier mid-round pick on the position, I do have some streamers who should be available for you with some pretty nicey opening schedules. And with that, let's get into it with our big 5. And again, not really controversial. You look at the ADP across different sites, you're going to see all these groups in it for a good reason. We like the defensive play callers. We like the overall rosters, and these groups were top 10 very much so last season in EPA allowed per play, success rate, and points per game allowed. So I'm going with my number 1 DST, though, as the Los Angeles Rams, guys. Again, already pretty great last season. They finished 5th in DST scoring, and what did they do? I don't know. Added the best defensive player alive in Myles Garrett, and maybe the second best one alive, at least for the last decade or so, in Aaron Donald. So again, incredible makeover on the defensive line. Unless we forget, they invaded the Kansas City Chiefs for Trent McDuffie and also Jaylen Watson even earlier in the offseason to help fortify what was a secondary need. Super Bowl favorites. We're expecting this team to be awesome. For me, the Los Angeles Rams check the most boxes and are accordingly the group I will be willing to go out of my way for to land first in fantasy drafts at some point. And I would say round 10, round 11, first 50 or so wide receivers, 40 RBs, 12 quarterbacks, 12 tight ends. I'm not usually an early DST guy, but if I am going to go out of my way for him, it would be for someone like the Los Angeles Rams. My number 2 DST is going to be the Houston Texans. DeMeco Ryan's bunch plays like literally a bunch of dudes on rabies. Shout out Thad Castle for doing that back in the day at Blue Mountain State. But man, they literally line up for 60 minutes. They don't blitz. They had the lowest mark in the league, and they just beat the crap out of you again and again and again. So it's a great roster. If you guys wanted to actually rank them first, like a lot of sites do have them, I would get it. For me, the difference, though, between the Houston and Los Angeles just kind of came down to the fact that we are expecting the Rams to be quite a bit of a juggernaut this year. If the Texans slid, weren't very good on offense, put their defense in constantly bad positions, it would make a little bit of sense. But again, they're awesome. I do have a stat actually called Havoc, where it's pretty cool stat, guys. I kind of found it in the college football circles back in the day. So I want to say maybe it was Bill Connolly that came up with it originally, but I've applied it to the NFL. It's percentage of plays where a defense gets a pressure, tackle for a loss, forced fumble, interception, or pass breakup. Havoc divided by the total number of plays. Houston last year, number 1 in the NFL. Seahawks and Broncos were tied for 2nd. Jaguars and Chargers rounded out the top 5. So again, feeling very good about this defense. They've ranked 5th and 2nd in DST scoring these last 2 years. Gotta love you some Houston Texans. DST number 3 is going to be the Denver Broncos, everyone. So still got Vance Joseph, leading the cause over there. And this defense is so loaded that their literal 2025 first-round pick, Jody Barron, who had a pick 6 in the preseason, can't even crack the starting lineup. So we're expecting some level of regression. They were so good in one-score games last year. And I think that's the main reason why their win total is sitting at just 9.5. But really good roster. We believe in Vance Joseph. He's actually led the 1st and 4th ranked scoring defenses in Denver in terms of DST. And yeah, feeling very, very good about this team overall. They are my 3rd favorite DST to draft here in fantasy football land. Number 4, though, I got the Seattle Seahawks, guys. Mike McDonald hasn't missed yet at the NFL level, okay? He had 2 years in Baltimore running that defense. His DSTs were 7th and 2nd. And then since taking his talents to Seattle, 6th and 1st. So only issue here, and the only reason I don't have him higher is just some of these injuries going on early season, specifically with Nick Emmanwori. But man, overall, just tough to poke any holes. And really the Sean McVay of defensive coaches, and obviously the Super Bowl winners for a reason. We're able to lean on that incredible defense. So Seattle Seahawks, DST 4 for me. If you wanted to rank them higher, who am I to disagree? DST 5, and this is where I would go ahead and draw a tier break, is going to be the Philadelphia Eagles. Vic Fangio, one of the greatest defensive masterminds of his generation. He is ranked 13th, 6th, 7th, and 7th in DST scoring over the course of the last 4 or 5 years. He was in Denver, and then I think he had a year off, and then he was in Miami, and then he's been 7th back-to-back years in Philly. Despite having one of the youngest defensive rosters in football, guys, like you do look at some of the money being thrown around to defenses overall. Eagles are down there with the Dolphins as the cheapest units because they still have all these guys on their rookie contracts. But man, Jalen Carter and Jordan Davis, stuffing up the middle. They lost Jalen Phillips, but they added Jonathan Greener from the Vikings. Also still got that awesome cornerback duo in Quinyon Mitchell and Cooper DeJean. So Vic Fangio pulling all the strings. Would not be shocked if the Eagles take a leap from good to great on the defensive side of the ball this year. Again, though, Those are the big five. Pretty much everyone knows it. And if you are in a league where all of a sudden someone takes that first DST and then everyone else starts, I should say, hopping on the train, maybe you want to wait. Maybe you're too cool to take one a little bit early. These would be the next five guys that I am trying to prioritize who, again, depending on the provider, actually are not being drafted sometimes, but have, again, a combination of hopefully being at least good in real life. We got some blue chippers. We got play callers we don't hate. And again, that early season schedule really is just looking good. The Baltimore Ravens, my favorite DST at cost out there, okay? Because we brought in Jesse Minter from the Chargers. We got Kyle Hamilton, Trey Hendrickson. It was a group last year. Seemingly every year, they just kind of ask Kyle Hamilton to change his job at midseason to plug whatever hole they happen to have. He fixes it, and they absolutely ball out the rest of the way. Love the coach. Really big fan of the talent. And the schedule, guys, we're getting through 6 weeks easy and potentially a lot more. Colts in week 1. Daniel Jones' first game coming off the Achilles. Saints in week 2 at home. Not a layup, but let's face it, not a matchup we're overly terrified of either. Cowboys in week 3. That's the one we're going to have to stomach because after that, Titans, Falcons, and Browns. My favorite DST of the year is, again, the Baltimore Ravens. Behind them, I will be looking at the Minnesota Vikings, guys, a group that, again, only has an ADP as a DST 12 on Yahoo, 17th over at ESPN. But Brian Flores, that man goes to bed blitzing and he wakes up blitzing again, man. Easily the highest ranked defense in terms of blitz rate last season and caused a lot of problems for opposing offenses all year round, particularly some of those younger quarterbacks. So I will say, the only reason why I don't have the Vikings kind of included in the big five, I didn't make it a big six. They just got some turnover on that defensive line, all right? Jonathan Greener, Javon Hargrave are out of the picture. I know Caleb Banks, they brought him in, round 1 pick, and they actually used each of their top 3 draft picks on the front 7. And again, given Flores his ability to just be so creative and, have different dudes going at all angles at these quarterbacks, pause on that one. But look, I'm giving Flores and this team the benefit of the doubt overall. That would be my 7th kind of priority DST, just behind the big 5, and then also, again, the Baltimore Ravens. My 8th favorite DST is going to be the Los Angeles Chargers, okay? Losing Jesse Minter, not ideal, but we still got the Derwin James-led unit that added guys like Khalil Mack and Dalvin Tomlinson to the front 7. Big thing here, though, is the schedule. We get the Cardinals in week 1 and the Raiders in week 2 before we potentially have to get back out there on the waiver wire. The Detroit Lions coming at number 9 for me. This one is the biggest, I would say, leap of faith in terms of thinking they're actually going to be good in real life. But I do have a lot of respect for Aiden Hutchinson and all the pressure he's able to get. Obviously made life very tough in my Ohio State Buckeyes a few years ago. I do not forget. And he's had a very good NFL career. Great to see him come back from that devastating injury. It'd be a lot cooler if Brian Branch and or Kirby Joseph could be available at the beginning of the year, but it's not looking great. That said, we got the Saints in week 1, the Bills in week 2. That sucks. Maybe we'll find another one for that game. But after that, Jets, Panthers, and Cardinals before their bye. Not too shabby, again, if you are waiting for your very last round to go ahead and get a DST. Last but not least, maybe it is least because I am ranking them 10, but the Jacksonville Jaguars, because guess what? They played Deshaun Watson and the Browns in week 1. And that's all I got. Seriously, though, they were good last year, but the Jaguars and the Bears just lived off takeaways, and we have seen historically teams that rank near the top of that leaderboard tend to regress a little bit just because it's hard to be that good year after year, and some of the balls bouncing different ways, fumble luck not being there, yada, yada, yada. But man, facing the Browns in week 1, how can you not love that? And they'll be home in Duval County. So looking forward to that one. Probably going to be my survivor pick as well. So again, guys, top 10 defenses I'm targeting: Rams, Texans, Broncos, Seahawks, Eagles. Those are the big 5. It shouldn't be too controversial. If I'm in a situation, again, top 50 wide receivers, I got my quarterback, I got my tight end. I'm just kind of looking at handcuff running backs anyway. I'm okay go ahead and spending up on one of those groups if they are still available, but I'm not too worried about it because I really think the Baltimore Ravens stand out as the best click of all the DSTs, particularly at cost. After the Ravens, Vikings, Chargers, Lions, and Jaguars would be my picks. So again, wanted to get this out there for you sickos like me who are in some leagues with some DSTs. If you're not, good for you, but plenty of us are, and I'm going to continue to try to provide the best content possible for all parties involved. So again, fun hanging out with you guys. Code Ian35 at rotowire.com, content, rankings, strategy, all that jazz. Let's go have a great freaking football season, everyone. Hope you guys are enjoying the summer. I'm going to the Tame Impala concert tonight. I can't freaking wait, and I can't wait to continue providing fantasy football content all season long as well. So I'm Ian Hartitz. Until next time, take care, everybody.